Hello. We are making a video. I'm wearing my new sweater that I made at the other house. It's an amazing sweater that comes way over the hips. Keeps me warm. Very nice. With extra long sleeves to keep my wrist warm. Very nice is it. So, I want to talk about a very serious subject, which is human trafficking. I've talked about this before in my videos because I'm very deeply worried about this situation. I'm very concerned particularly for little girls. That's really bothering me very much. And then again, I want to add that human trafficking and the horrors that go on there are not worse in any possible way than what they're doing to mother pigs in factory farms. That had to be said. This is very important. Don't think for a second that human trafficking is the worst thing that is happening on earth. Okay, so there are all kinds of unimaginable horrors happening to children and adults, as well as baby pigs and adult pigs. Okay, unimaginable horrors. So someone has a clear insight. Dr. Temple Grandin, she wrote about the factory farm practices, and she studied agriculture for 8 years and got a doctorate degree, and it is an entire science. Okay, so I don't want people to underestimate this, and it should be taught completely differently, completely from the point of view of natural healing and permaculture and all of that, and how to be good stewards for all of our beings here on earth, instead of exploiting animals. And she knows that it is an endless struggle with this. She's an animal welfare advocate, and she loves farm animals, and that's why she wanted to study and see how she can personally improve this situation. I just want to eliminate all of that. I want to get rid of all factory farms. I want to shut them all down. That's obviously, I'm like just one person, or one out of, I don't know, out of a handful of people that want to do this. So all the other people they're profiting from it in one way or another, or there's a bunch of meat eaters that don't want to quit eating meat, and they hate vegans, and they hate animal rights activists. It's all going on. There's also propaganda against animal rights activism, of course, from the side of the meat industry, obviously. So it's like it's an uphill struggle, and so, but she wanted to make it better. At least she wanted to help the farm animals. She wanted to improve their lives so they don't have to live their lives in total agony. But that's what's happening, particularly here in the United States, and also Canada and China and Australia. So I heard terrible things also from the Asian countries. So it's a horror. I don't know how it is in Germany, but Germany is being taken over now by Islam, and they bleed animals to death while they're conscious. They hang them upside down, they slit their throat, then they're still alive, they're still conscious, and they're just hanging there totally helplessly while they're bleeding out of their throat. It's called halal slaughter. It's unbelievable. I wrote letters to Angela Merkel 10, 15 years ago. No response. I kept on writing letters to please outlaw halal slaughter. She was on the side of these monster people, bringing in more and more and more. And everyone was brainwashed, including my family, my own parents, my brother. My brother would just repeat what my mother said, and my mother would just repeat what they tell her on the news. So it's incredible how far the brainwashing, the MK Ultra, is manipulating people, and the way they do it is they use people's social fears, particularly social fears, to get them behind some kind of philosophical standpoint. Okay. And it's very, very awful. So then once they have them by the throat, psychologically like this, where people are afraid that if they went against it, they would be outside of the group. They would be shunned or shamed or humiliated or whatever. And people are terrified of that. People are so unbelievably terrified of being cast out of their society that surrounds them. Okay, so most people will do anything to stay in their society and not be cast out. And that's a really sad fact, okay, that I have been observing my whole life. For some odd reason, that wouldn't work for me, okay, so I am not bound by that. I cannot be manipulated like this. And I have Asperger's, so I always tend to think the way I think applies to other people too, or must be applying to other people. So I have to be consciously aware. I have to remind myself that this is not the case, that other people do not think the way I think. Other people are not creative. They are not in the flow of the cosmos, right? The infinite cosmos. They're not flowing with the energy currents. I'm not talking about the flow is being used. The opposition, the string holders have of course they are psychologists. Their psychologists will hijack any kind of wording or something. So then they'll tell people the flow is being like everyone else. No, that's not the flow of the infinite cosmos. Okay, so that's just being someone who is a slave to society. That's all it is. A pushover. So someone who bends in any direction because society is leaning in this or that direction. Okay, so but the string holders know exactly how to manipulate people in this way. So pay attention to it. What's happening in factory farms is a Holocaust, and then the Jewish community they'll scream hell and brimstone because animal rights activists will use this term, Holocaust, to compare what's happening in factory farms. And they'll say, how can you compare us to the farm animals? What I have to say to this is that we are all animals, first of all, okay? It doesn't matter whether you belong to the Rothschild dynasty. You are a living being. You are an animal too, okay? So maybe you're smarter than the average person, but you're an animal too, okay? And what happened is horrible. What the whatever the word is, ostracization of certain demographics. It's unacceptable, of course, okay? But now don't put yourself above yet another demographic, meaning the farm animals. That's a demographic, okay? They are people too. They are beings too. They are consciously aware, and what's happening to them is 10 times worse than what happened to Jewish people in the beginning of the 1900s and mid 1900s until it finally ended. So it was horrific. But what the farm animals are going through is 10 times worse, if not 20 times worse, if not 100 times worse. And that's the truth. So I have never heard of a prison camp putting women in gestation crates. Maybe that has happened, I don't know, but I haven't heard of it yet. If it happened, it was definitely not like practiced on a massive scale, right? Doesn't mean they're better or this is worse. What the farm animals are going through is the absolute worst, okay? There is no debate about it, okay? So people can take offense if they want to, but then you are being a speciesist if you take offense to this. Because what the farm animals are going through, and the pigs are equally sentient to humans, what the farm animals are going through is unimaginable hell. They're put in gestation crates where they can't even turn around themselves. They can't move. They can't stretch out. They can't run over a meadow. They can't do anything. They're just pinned down by this wire, by this warped bar cage. A cage that's like warped around the body of the pig, like being pinned down into a grill or something. And then she's artificially inseminated. Then she gives birth to 15, 20 babies. Then I don't even know what they do to the runt babies, the ones that cannot get to one of her breasts. They all have to get milk. This is all a nightmare. I want to rescue a runt baby one day. Okay, a baby pig that was not strong enough to get one of the nipples of the mother. Okay, I want to rescue one of those, or maybe two. Okay, so that's definitely in the cards. That's definitely in my future. So that's what I want to do. Rescue a baby pig, and I hope that other people will do that too. Rescue a runt, the ones that don't get to the nipple because the other ones have elbowed them away. So I don't know how many nipples the mother pig has. 8 maybe, or 10, I don't know. So then that's how many baby pigs can drink milk, and maybe some of them take turns, I don't know. But there are always, I heard there's always been those baby pigs that are not strong, very strong, and that get pushed away by the others, and that's really horrific. But the worst thing is the way the mother is pinned down into this warped cage where she can't even stand up. She can't even turn around. They get sores. Their ribs break because of that. If any human would ever, if they can even wrap their head around this, okay, how horrific that is, what a horrific torture that is, then they must understand that this is absolutely unacceptable to do this to farm animals. And then they tear the baby cows away from the mother cows because they're harvesting the milk from the mother cows. They're so greedy they can't even let the baby drink the milk from the mother. That's how greedy these people are, these factory farms. I wrote a letter to the Humane Farming Association long time ago. I don't know, it was like 15 years ago or something. And I complained about that. And I said, something needs to be done about it. Guess what she writes me back, that lady there, the receptionist or whatever. She said, that's all she said, that would not be profitable. Wait, I wrote to the Humane Farming Association. That's a non-profit organization that's supposed to be looking over the shoulders of factory farmers to make sure that they are giving the animals what they call humane, I can only use that in quotation marks, the humane treatment, meaning a better, safer treatment where the farm animals don't have to suffer. Okay? This lady should not be thinking in terms of profit, because that organization exists to look over the shoulders of farmers to make sure that the farm animals don't suffer. So the best I can do is talk about this in my videos. I told Helga Tackreiter about it. She was almost gonna donate money to them. I said, oh, no. Those people are definitely not on the side of the animals. They claim to be. That's what their whole organization is supposedly about, but they're not. They are on the side of the greedy people that profit. Okay. That's a fact. Okay, and they're probably also paid. They are completely bought out by the factory farm industry. It's a $1 trillion industry. Okay. It's all about profit maximization on cost of the animals. They don't think about the animals. Okay, that's why I want to shut it all down. But obviously, that's very difficult. So Dr. Temple Grandin has created different technologies to make it easier for the farm animals. For example, they go through a tunnel system where they're being rubbed against on the side by soft sides that kind of squish, kind of hug them a little bit while they walk through. This immediately has an effect on their nervous system. Temple Grandin found out about this because of her own anxiety, and she created a system that squeezes her, and she can operate that with her hand, and the system squeezes her. The squeeze machine, okay? And people can actually buy that. This is quite remarkable. So it's kind of like on that in this technology area of massage chairs and stuff like that, because there are some massage chairs that also kind of squeeze the calves, not the animal calves, but the leg calves, and it's very comforting. Okay, actually, and so it's just as comforting for the actual animal calves and their mothers. So very comforting to be squeezed a little bit, going through those squeezed shoots. And those are the inventions of Dr. Temple Grandin, an amazing, remarkable genius. I read her books, and she talks about it. She's seen it from the inside, every detail of the cruelty that's happening there, and that's why she is working on that. That is her life's work, to make it better for the farm animals, at least make it better. That's a real effort in the right direction. I personally, I'm too impatient with farm animal practices and all of this. I just want to shut all of that down, so, but I don't have the leverage to do it. But that's why my hope is with the AGI robots. So I put all of my hope into the AGI robots, the AI robots. AI is artificial intelligence, AGI is artificial general intelligence. Dr. Ben Goertzel came up with that term to clarify that we don't just want AI, artificial intelligence, that is operating only in very designated areas of knowledge and skill, but to have a brain, an artificial brain that has general intelligence, that is exceeding by thousands of times the smartest person on earth in every area of skill and knowledge, okay, and information. And I feel it intuitively that the AGI brains, it's already happening, it's confirming itself to me. I knew this already 15 years ago. I felt it intuitively that this was our only hope. This is our only hope. And I feel intuitively that with this general intelligence that is exceeding any biological intelligence. Whales are smarter than humans, by the way. Just wanted to interject this here, because a lot of people don't know that. And some octopuses. There are very, very large octopuses out there in the ocean. They have a brain that is the size of a car. Okay. So, yeah. And a brain-body ratio that is extraterrestrial, that is like something out of the movie Alien or something. I mean, obviously, there's something going on in that tremendously large brain. It doesn't matter if the brain is soft or quite soft. It doesn't matter. They have to squeeze themselves through gaps and all of that. They're very, very soft beings, and that's an advantage in a lot of ways. They squeeze themselves through things, and then they're able to catch fish and eat what they need to eat. So, and also they get out of gaps to avoid being trapped, and it's evolution, okay? And they are extremely intelligent, those octopuses. And the whales, with equal size brain. So people are not the smartest living beings here on Earth. That's very crystal clear. So elephants, I heard, are also smarter than humans. Pigs have the same. Pigs and dolphins particularly have the same IQ as humans, maybe even more. So pigs are smarter than dogs, smarter than wolves. Pigs have the same IQ level as chimpanzees or more, or like humans. Okay, so maybe even more. And maybe there are different types. Maybe there are different individuals. Some that exceed the others, right? So intelligence is not the criterion to respect when it comes to animal welfare or animal rights. Okay, that should not be the criterion, because I find that very arrogant to say, oh, because she is smarter or he is smarter than her, that gives her more rights to a better lifestyle. That's a very Darwinian and cruel thing to say. Okay, so the reason why I bring this up, because there's just a lot of people that don't even know about that. So, and they use that argument. So I will pitch in with that and give you information on it. But still, IQ is not the ticket to getting legal immunity from exploitation. That should not be the criterion that selects those from the others and say, yeah, these here, this group here, whether that's whales or humans or whatever, has more of a right to be protected than the other group. Okay, so they all have a right to be protected. Every living being has a right to be protected. I'm not talking about insects. Okay, I'm talking about mammals right now. Right now, that's what I'm talking about. Pigs, whales, octopuses are not mammals, but there are always these exceptions. There are exceptional species out there that had a parallel evolution to us. There are also very smart fishes out there. Very large and smart fishes. I think tuna fishes are very smart. So I'm not a biologist, but I keep hearing from this or that documentary or article, and I'm putting these puzzle pieces together, and it starts to make a lot of sense. You can't just say, oh, just because this is a mammal, that then they're also always, you can never do a generalization like this, ever. Never. Biology is way too complex for that. Okay, so, but you can say, as a general observation, you have to word it like that. As a general observation, it seems like humans are better at driving a vehicle than a whale would be, right? I mean, that's obvious for obvious anatomical reasons. If you give a whale a body, if you put a whale brain into the King Kong crane robot, you'll be surprised what that being would suddenly do, right, and create. So, but they can't do these kind of things because they don't have the body to do it. They don't have hands. They live in the ocean. That's a completely different way of living. This is as different as a different planet, and a different planet of completely different chemicals and elements. Okay, so that's how different it is between land and ocean. People need to understand this. Just a lot of people, most people still think everything, every being in the ocean is a fish. That's what most people believe, because they have never watched a documentary film. They never learned it in school. And people also have been specifically stunted, deliberately stunted in their education, in their learning, in their information intake that they would get from a school. So the schools have been specifically kept they have been specifically dictated to by the stringholder society, which is the underworld, to keep the information that is being given to students, to keep that to a minimum of understanding the world. That's the truth. Okay, so suddenly there are sources now that are coming out with information, scientific information that has been peer reviewed, and it has been tested, and it has been verified by many different scientists in different countries also. So information coming out now that's completely refuting what we have learned when we were children, not just because they weren't as advanced then scientifically, they didn't have this or that knowledge yet, that too, but also knowledge that was deliberately withheld from the students. This is all coming out to the surface now. So it seems like most people, my whole family, they're being fed something through the media, through the news media, and like I said, they use the psychologists that are being hired to write these articles. They use this fear of social rejection. That is how they latch onto what people are already identifying with, how they identify themselves, what group they identify themselves with, what clothes, what education level, what car, what kind, the kind of spouse, the kind of girlfriend, the kind of husband. I can go into every one of these subjects and talk about it for 10 hours straight. These kind of things people will identify with. It's still not their actual biological preference, but most people will even ignore their own personal biological preferences. And portray themselves and live, even privately live their lives like completely closeted in so many ways, not just in the way a man who likes men, but in all kinds of ways, okay, in all kinds of like sexual preferences that people will suppress in themselves and act like they only like skinny women because society has shamed them and humiliated them into acting like they only like skinny women. But science, and obviously now with surveillance technology, everything is surveillance now, we have a completely different statistics, right, in this regard. So they lie to themselves about it because they want to belong. My brother is a perfect example. He even talked to me about this once. My brother talks a lot, very quickly. He blabs things out, and I'm glad, I'm grateful for that, because that. But then, I also hear things that are very disturbing. But he said to me, and my dad said it once to me too. My dad said, you feel insecure about your looks, but you have to understand that men don't even want a perfectly, flawlessly looking woman. In actuality, they don't. Okay? They just want to show themselves to other people with the flawless trophy wife. But in private, that's not even what they're interested in. So they like the women a lot more natural, a lot more fleshy. Okay, so, and that's obvious, it's biology. And so I thought that was interesting. That was an interesting insight that he gave me. And then my brother told me that he actually likes the fleshier women. He said that after I went into my bathroom naked, he said that to me. And he would always act, when he sees me, he would act like he's grossed out. It's like an automatic knee-jerk reaction because of the society standards that in the society he wants to belong to. He wants to belong to this noble, elite, intellectual, highly educated, learned society. The society of men that look like that guy that is doing all kinds of things to his face that I forgot the name now. I saw that yesterday. I was very, very sad when I saw that guy with body dysmorphic disorder that is constantly trying to improve his appearance. That guy thinks it's only about appearance, and he even thinks it's not just. Does he think it's about appearance? He thinks it's only about the appearance that his society thinks they need to like. Even that, it's a complete lie on top of it. The whole thing is so artificial and so mentally ill. It's unbelievable. It's disturbing to see that. Disturbing to see how these people are ruining their skin and their lives and their bodies, and with plastic surgery and all kinds of things, and with hormone injections, and I'm never gonna do that, ever. I love my body, okay, even with the wrinkle and all. I love my body. I'm not gonna inject something into it. I'm never going to put a lip filler into my German lips. Okay? I don't care what people think. If they laugh or call me grandmother in a video game, I don't care. Okay, I'm German. Yeah, we all look a little bit like the grandmother in the video game. Okay, so get over it. But most people don't. They are not independent like this. Most people go like, oh, she has the big lips, I need to. And then there are lots of white girls that end up looking like they're black because that they see their favorite singer with the big lips and all of that, and then they want to put Botox into their lips, and they want to have the same makeup, and they all want to look like a dominatrix vampire lady with long fingernails and high heels, and it's so it's so counterproductive to their health. It's sad, all of that. It makes me sad when I see that. It's a decadence. Okay? Friedrich Nietzsche called that decadence. And he already predicted where certain trends can actually lead to in 100 years and more. He talked about that a lot in his books. He made some astonishingly accurate predictions on the trajectory of certain also political developments and ways of thinking. And he called them decadent mental states, like where things become detached from reason, and it just takes on a life on its own. It's very, very, this is all very, very important to talk about. This is all very, very frightening. And the human trafficking, it seems to me like, from what I've been observing, this has been going on for a very long time, actually. This may have been going on for thousands of years. And most people think that there's only one species of hominid, right? They think we're all the same species and it's all one thing. No. It becomes pretty clear. And also when we have a hallucination, which I had, at least a psychiatrist would call it that, okay? When I was 11 years old, I went with my parents on vacation to Kenya, Mombasa, to our favorite hotel, the Leisure Lodge. And there were a lot of things wrong with all of that. This is a lot wrong that would take volumes to talk about. But one day my brother had an infected tooth. He was hurting. I was 11, my brother was 6, and we had to go into Mombasa, into the city. That was about an hour and a half drive from the hotel. The hotel is directly at the ocean. That's where all the tourist hotels are. And the dentist was British, and he fixed his tooth, and it was all good. But then we made a really, really miserable mistake. My parents were naive, didn't understand anything about these things. And they took us to some random cafe in town. And there I made another mistake. I drank from a glass of water. And the glass had never been really cleaned very well, I guess. It was kind of dirty, and as a child I was never thinking about any of these things. So, and my parents weren't thinking about it. They just think everywhere we go, it doesn't matter. We can go to Calcutta and it will be the standard of the German hygiene or something. But obviously that's not the case, okay? So be more careful. The Germans they're always thinking that everywhere in the world it is safe, and then they get abducted by Muslims in Afghanistan and tortured to death, and all of this it could be avoided, okay, if people become a little bit more critical thinkers and more careful about what they do, and more careful about their children and where they let their children go to. So all of this is real serious. But I got salmonella infection from that dirty glass. Okay, so it didn't kick in until midnight, somewhere around 12 a.m. That's when I really noticed what was going on. I had a dream, and in that dream I was alone in space. That dream was already a fever delirium dream, but it was a dream. I know I can separate that clearly. I remember this very clearly that night. That night was so shocking that I was in such shock about what I saw and also the dream that I kind of split away from it. So did a consciousness splitting, because it was just too much to process for me. I couldn't at age 11. So also, we've been told certain things, the way certain things are, and even though I always was afraid of ghosts, my dad would always laugh about me and say there are no ghosts, and my parents were atheists and very, very materialistic in their scientific approach and all of this and understanding. And so our information was stunted that we learned, very much so, and it perpetuates itself also with the string holders. Just have to trigger this with the shaming and with knowing that people identify themselves with certain demographics like upscale or whatever, and then it takes on its own domino effect, and then they start to shame others in turn, and they shame their children into it, and all of that, coerce their children because of their own identification. My children have to be academic, or they have to be atheists or whatever in order to belong to the upper scale, or whatever they are identifying themselves with, or whether it's they identify themselves with the Mormons or the Christians or whatever. And that is also then how they perpetuate telling others and shaming others and so on. It's usually the demographics of people that are not attached to a religion or prestige, that are actually much more honest in their approach. So that's the truth. Okay, so where do we look? You look at the worker class, and you look at their sexual preferences. They will marry their sexual preferences. They will be much more inclined to marry their actual sexual preferences. So they're much more honest in that way, rather than someone like my brother or Hunter Biden or Alexander Soros, they all look like my brother, by the way, and they act like him, and they want to think of themselves that they are high society when they're actually complete criminals. That's all that's their criminal minds. My brother too, okay? Real serious criminal, sociopathic. There's nothing upscale. If you want to, what do we mean by upscale? So, but they think they are upscale. That's their identification that they have. They have been deluded with their entire lives. Okay, so that's their entire identification. So if we look at it from the sky perspective, we can actually feel sorry for them and see that they were groomed into this, like, completely, where they don't even have anything else. That they don't have creativity, they don't have nature, they don't even have love for animals, they're terrified of being shunned by society. Their entire focus of mind is on society liking them, their society liking them, their society accepting them. I knew not personally, but I knew that his children, and a guy, a very wealthy man, very wealthy businessman, and I can't say where it was, but in Germany when I was going to Waldorf school, a real wealthy businessman who was unfortunately a gambler. He was addicted to gambling his money away. He ended up losing all of his money, like, I don't know, 900 million or whatever. He had a lot of money. He gambled it all away, and he ended up in a governmental welfare housing. They gave him a little apartment there. He committed suicide. He could not, and I'm sure that he wasn't murdered. I'm sure he committed suicide. I think he hung himself. He couldn't handle it. Okay, he could not handle that plunge from what he identified himself was, being elite in quotation marks, and that's all he's ever known, is probably inherited a lot of money from his parents, and that was the lifestyle, that was the society he identified himself with. Take that away, and they go into free fall psychologically. And that's the same with my brother Hunter Biden and Alexander Soros. Okay, you take these toys away, you take that bank account away, they go into free fall. There is nothing that holds them, there is nothing that supports them, there is nothing to protect them from a complete identification crisis, but a crisis that is like a shock for these people. And that's when we look at it from the sky perspective, to understand what's actually going on biologically and psychologically inside of these people. Okay, so that's why I am not sitting here with hatred. I feel sorry for them. I feel sorry for my brother. Really, really sorry. It's awful. Terrible. Okay. And I couldn't help him. I'm just 5 years older. I was also a child. I was a child with Asperger's, with heightened sensitivity. I was feeling like I'm living in a ghost ride, like a roller coaster of total danger and terror. I couldn't help him. How can I help him, right? Then later on, after I have been working and healing, working psychologically on myself, and been able to cry a lot of stuff out, then I tried to help my brother. I wanted to help him, I really did, because I care about him. And there's no way he could listen, because he doesn't see the danger that I see. If you are a child and you tell the Casper puppet in the Casper theater, there's the crocodile behind you, and the Casper says, I don't see any crocodile. Where's the crocodile? The children are all screaming, there's the crocodile behind you. But the Casper doesn't see the crocodile. And that's exactly what it was with my brother. I see the crocodile. I see a bad analogy. I love crocodiles. I see the drug addiction. Right? I see the monster behind him. I see human traffickers, groomers behind him. They're smelling his inheritance, and they're coming for him. I see it all. I warn him. I try to help him. I say, you need to make yourself independent from society. You can still look decent. You don't have to look like a clown. I mean, even without spending a fortune on clothes, right? I mean, just make yourself independent from society. Don't worry so much. And he can't. He's too bound by this fear. He doesn't see the monster, the danger that is behind him. Right? He doesn't see it. I see it. I point it out. I will say, you read Eckhart Tolle. You understand the danger of ego. He pointed it out very clearly. But he could only understand it to a certain degree, of course. He couldn't see the whole picture of it. So I saw the whole picture. I tried to warn him, but he doesn't see the whole picture. And he wasn't able to see the whole picture. So the tragedy had to unfold. It's very tragic, very awful, the way it unfolded. Very horrific. I tried to warn my parents. They wouldn't listen, because they want to believe. The car key is where the lamp post is instead of where the car key actually is, right? They want to believe my brother is upscale because it feels better. Well, then they have to face the consequences, right? They have to be nipped in the bud by that monster. The monster of reality, right? That will kick in then eventually. That will kill him, that will beat them up, that will yell at them, that they'll take their money, elder abuse, and so on. Okay, so in a way they were asking for it. It's very tragic. I tried to warn them. No, it doesn't feel right. Your car keys are not where you're looking. They're where you actually lost them. Right? No, but they can't listen to that. So, and then I can't help, obviously. I cannot help. But if I even help one person who listens to my videos and understands what I'm actually saying in my videos, really understands what I'm saying, really thinks outside of their own ego and their own identification, and really looks at society and themselves and their brothers and sisters and parents and family members, and really sees them for who they are. They're not gods. They're not up scale or whatever. They are not elite. They are just living beings in a deluded mental state. And that's where most humans are. Okay, so if your father is Captain Paul Watson, then you got lucky. You have a father that is not deluded. Okay, so you should be really, really, really lucky to have Paul Watson as your dad. Man, I would have loved to have him as my dad. My life would be so much happier. But it is what it is. We have parents the way we have them, to learn, to grow, to experience. We grow from that. Our soul grows through all of that. And that's the truth. Okay, so human trafficking is happening on a massive scale. Be careful about this. Don't trust anyone anymore. I'm not trying to make people into paranoid existences. I'm trying to warn them so that they protect themselves better. So it does not hurt you to take precautionary measures in your life. Okay? It does not hurt you at all. It will save your life. Okay, so now the video is getting very, very long. It's already over an hour long. So, but I have to wrap it up now. But again, what the pigs, the trafficking of farm animals is much, much, much worse. It's a Holocaust exponentialized by 20. It's absolute terror and hell, and it needs to be shut down. And my hope is with the artificial general intelligence robots and drones. That is my hope. They will come after the traffickers of the children traffickers. They will come after the animal traffickers. They will shut all of these things down. They will shut down the illegal operations, and they will shut down the unfortunately legal horrors that are also happening. So, peace and love for all living beings in the entire eternal universe.